the historicity of Jesus Christ. I'm only coming into it. I only said few things as an introduction. No sensible historian could casually bypass Christ and Christianity. However, many have attempted to discredit Christianity by proving Christ a myth. G.A. Wells, he wrote a book called Did Jesus Exist? Published in 1975. In this book, the author questions the historicity of Jesus Christ. He says there are no conclusive evidences to prove Jesus Christ ever lived or he ever rose again. He used a proposition to prove his point. For 4 propositions to prove his point. First, the epistles of Paul were the early written books of the New Testament. And in those books, Paul never mentioned anything about the birth and life of Jesus Christ. True or false? Paul never mentioned anything about Jesus Christ in his epistles. Boy, if you wanted to, there are literally hundreds of references in the epistles of Paul about Jesus Christ. We'll come to them. Many of them. Many of them. I just a casual reading. Among the details of Christ's life found in the Pauline epistles include the eternality of Christ, Colossians 1:15, the sinlessness of his humanity, Galatians 4:4, Christ's genealogy, Romans 9:5 and 1:3, the betrayal of Jesus by Judah, 1 Corinthians 11:23, details about the Lord's Supper he established, 1 Corinthians 11:23, the fact that it was the Romans who crucified Christ, Philippians 2:8 and 1 Corinthians 1:23, Galatians 3:13, 4:14. The point Jews played in the crucifixion of Christ, 1 Thessalonians 2:15. The resurrection on the third day, 1 Corinthians 15:4. The details on the apostles of Christ, Galatians 2:9. The fact that Peter was a married man, 1 Corinthians 9:5. The brothers of Jesus Christ, 1 Corinthians 15:5 and 9:5, Galatians 1:18 and 19. On the teachings of Christ, 1 Corinthians 7:10, 9:14, 1 Corinthians, all there are hundreds of references in the New Testament. Yet this man has said that in the writings of Paul there was no mention about Jesus Christ's life or ministry. I mean, how can people be dishonest? That's it. You need to be intellectual honesty there. Spiritual dishonesty could be there, but intellectual dishonesty is something there. You read a book and you have to say what is in the book, but these people have said it, So that the epistles of Paul were the early written books of the New Testament, and in those books Paul never mentioned anything about the life of Christ. Second proposition he made is in other epistles and the pastoral epistles, mention of Jesus' birth and life in Palestine was mentioned. Paul's doesn't have, but others have. Well, others have, Paul's also have. I have read many of those Paul's. Third said an attempt is seen to make Jesus Christ a historical person in some of the apocryphal writings written after the New Testament. Example, he quotes the writings of Ignatius. One thing I have to say that whether it is apocryphal writings or canonical writings, anybody who has written, they have written a lot about Jesus Christ, because Jesus Christ is a historical reality. Which fool will sit down to write on somebody who never existed? It is in the Gospels we see the efforts to make Jesus Christ a historical person. Gospels were written from AD 70 to 120, according to him. But Gospels were written from 70 to probably 98 AD. It is in the last Gospel, John, which was written later than the other 3, that we see a deliberate attempt to make Jesus the incarnate Logos. Many other books similar to what Wells have written are made. In those books we could see a deliberate but unsuccessful attempt to make the historical Christ a non-historical person. Now, to discredit a proposition of Wells, it is simply enough to show the following of Wells' arguments. It is absolute absurdity for him to make the claim that in Paul's epistles there were no reference to the historicity of Jesus Christ. Now I have mentioned all those. Paul preached the Lord Jesus Christ, who was born as the seed of David, who died and rose again. Paul centered his message on the cross of Christ. Paul prided in the cross. He said, God forbid that I should boast except in the cross of Jesus Christ. 1 Corinthians 1:23, 2:2, 15:11 to 15, Galatians 6:14, 1 Corinthians 9:15, Galatians 1:18, 19, etc. Paul preached a Christ who not only was born and lived, but who was crucified, buried, and rose again. Paul even made references to James, the brother of Jesus Christ, and Peter, the disciple of Jesus Christ. People can just make a lying statement, The argument of Wells that there are no reference to Jesus Christ in other non-Pauline canonical books is totally wrong. Jesus Christ came in the flesh is part of the apostolic faith and confession. There is something called apostolic faith, the didache. Didache means the teachings of the 12, which is not a canonical writing. It was written 112 AD. But in that one, how many references to Jesus Christ? So for somebody to say this sort of statements in the epistles of Peter and John, this fact is repeatedly pointed out. John wrote about the incarnated Word, whom he touched, heard and seen. 1 Peter 1:20, 21, 2:21, 22, 1 John 1:1 to 4, 4:3. John's John's epistle begins with that which was, we have seen, we have heard, our hands have touched concerning Jesus Christ, concerning life, John says, I have touched him, I felt him, sat with him, slept with him, ate with him. For 3 years these people were. Another argument put forward in the 19th century is that the Gospels were not written with a view that they be treated as historical records. Well, if that helps in any way, it helps only the Gospels. If the Gospel writers did not write it to make a historical record, but still became a historical record, that adds only to its credibility. They have written a piece of literature just like that, but everybody accepts it as historical. Why? Because everything said is, historical. It is just like Mahatma Gandhi's son or wife has written something about Gandhi. They never meant it to say anything, but a family, diary or something, but that diary has become a valuable source for the study of Mahatma Gandhi. Why? Because it is written by Mahatma Gandhi's wife or children. The same way Gandhi, Jesus Christ's disciples who walked with him, talked with him, who were taught and discipled for 3 years, they have penned down things about Jesus Christ, never meant to make it historical records. But the fact that because they are written by eyewitnesses, people who lived with Jesus Christ, they are historical records. So what is history? What is history? So these people will say things that have no sense. They were written simply to explain the faith of the early community of believers. Whether their faith was real or historical was not a point the gospel writers considered. In another sense, the gospels are explanations of a people's faith and not historical narrations of a person. Well, that makes it all the more. When you wanted to make a historical record, something that is not history, how carefully you will write. When you don't have such intentions of making it anything, then you are to write it very casually. And if that casualty has become very serious historical records, what would have happened if these apostles made it a point that they wanted to make it, a historical record about the Jesus whom they knew? This is, very interesting talking with some of these people, Of course they will not. Somebody once came to me, they wanted to argue and prove that Jesus Christ never existed. And I said, what are your credibility and to prove this point? He said, Idamaru has written a book. I said, 2000 years before Idamaru was born, 27 books were written about Jesus Christ. What will you say about it? See that? If you have more faith in Edinburgh than in Matthew, Mark, Luke and John and in Jesus Christ himself, you will believe in Edinburgh. Yeah. I say you can believe a lie, but you cannot make a truth a lie by you are not believing it. No, cannot. The Gospels are records, historical records of the life of Jesus Christ. Whether a person like Jesus Christ actually lived or not, it's never debated. It never needed to be debated until these people came. This person, they say, may have been historical or mythological. Rudolf Bultmann, great brain, great mind, a German man, 1884 to 1976. A German theologian was the main exponent of this view. As evidence to corroborate his view, Bultmann has pointed out the following facts. Number one, Gospels never present a complete biography of Jesus Christ. That's very correct. You will accept Mahatma Gandhi's historicity only if you get a complete biography. If a biographer has left some 10 years of events, therefore you will say that. If one of your cow was killed by a tiger and the tiger has taken away the head of it, you will never admit a cow was killed until you get all the parts. What kind of an argument that will be? Ridiculous argument, aren't they? So, say that they did not give us a complete biography. Yes, that's very true. They did not give us. Many and important facts of Christ's life are omitted, like what happened to Jesus Christ. The first 12 years, we see him born, and then the next record we see is in the temple, right at the age of 12. We see him at the age of 12, and then next we see him in Jordan, ready to be baptized by John the Baptist. So what happened in between? Anyway, you are not going to say that Jesus Christ did not live from birth to 12, and Jesus Christ did not live from 12 to 30. If Jesus Christ appeared at the age 12, it proves that Jesus was a person living for the last 12 years. If Jesus appeared at the age of 30, then that's a proof that Jesus was living for 12 to 30 years. Your question is not that whether Jesus Christ is historical. Now you can say that we don't know what Jesus was doing. Well, maybe Jesus never wanted you to know what he was doing. Or maybe that was not important, because what Jesus Christ has done for 30 years is not important. Jesus Christ came to save the humanity from sin. So his sacrifice is the most important, and his teachings are the most important. That is given in detail. Anybody write biography, they don't give anything, everything. There are many biographies of Dr. Radhakrishnan written. A few years back, one of his sons have written a biography and revealed some discomforting facts. That Dr. Radhakrishnan had a relationship with a concubine. All his life he was cheating, in addition to his wife. But none of the other biographers have mentioned it. Therefore, we reject all that biography. His son has revealed this fact. That's the way, Matthew was writing, what was Matthew's intention? Matthew was writing the biography of Jesus Christ, presenting him as the king of the Jews. So he has collected only relevant factors that are relevant for a king. Mark was writing Jesus Christ, presenting Jesus Christ as the faithful servant of Jehovah. Biography of a servant, the genealogy of a servant is not very important, is it? You had ever in your home servants? You know who was the great-great-grandpa of that servant? Genealogy of a servant is not important. So Mark did not even make mention. What is important about a servant? What the servant is doing. So Mark immediately started with the Jesus Christ, went out his work. John was presenting Jesus as the Son of God, a deity. Does God have a genealogy? God has a mother and father? So John does not make any mention about genealogy. He started out, in the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God and the Word was God. So if somebody says that I have read the biography of the Gospel of John, and I can believe that John did not say a thing about the father, mother and anything about Jesus Christ. Why? The purpose? The purpose of the author? There is something like that. If my son is going to write my biography, which he is not going to do, because he doesn't have a famous father, that's the reason. But if he is to write, he will be writing from the point of view of a son-father relationship, right? But if my wife sitting there going to write my biography, many things my son mentioning will not be there. In my son's biography, there will be occasions when I spank him so heavily and it was unreasonable for dad to spank me like that, But my wife will not be saying all those things. She will be saying that maybe the husband was unreasonable when he said, the curry had too much salt when it didn't have, or something like that. See, the thing is, what my wife will write is from a wife's point of view, my son. If one of the servants is going to write a biography, what you can expect in that one? Entirely different. But all of them is true, but it's from their perspective. It's their perspective. The perspective is very important. What perspective you are going to go and write. So that's what the Gospels are. Real records written from different perspectives. So Bultmann was wrong, and he happened to be a professor of theology. He must have this much, this much common sense. But sometimes these great people don't have common sense. You know that? They are great because they don't have common sense. If they have common sense, they will be among the common people. Common sense belongs to what? Common people, right? Great people should have great sense, but there is no English phrase like a great sense. So, so Bultmann missed that. So Gospels were written, with the perspective, with the purpose. Many stories and events added to the Gospels which actually did not take place during Christ's time, but later. That's what Bultmann said. And then he pointed out John chapter 8. In John chapter 8, the story of the woman caught in adultery. The woman was brought to Jesus Christ. It is not in 3 Gospels. It's only in John's Gospel chapter 8. And everybody says John's Gospel chapter 8 was added. So it's an interpolation. Well, suppose, for example, John chapter 8 is an interpolation, which I strongly believe it is not, and I can prove it is not. But suppose it is an interpolation. That does not mean the Gospel of John is not historical reliability. It only means that in John's Gospel there is one interpolation. That's all. What it means. Suppose you cooked rice and one plate rice was given to somebody, and they have the first handful of rice put in there was a stone. So will you say that this plate is not rice, it's stone? Or you say that this is all rice, but it happened to have one small stone. It does not credit the fact that the plate contains rice. Nobody will ask the mother, did you cook stone today or rice today? Why, son, you ask the question? Because I got a stone. So what do you think? You count all the rice in your plate, count all the stone, and then ask me that question, Mom, you cooked rice or stone today? So if somebody wants to say that one interpolation has come, you are going to discredit the whole historicity of Jesus Christ and what John has written. That shows you have a bias, right? That shows you have a bias. People with bias always do that. Even if you answer all their questions and everything is correct, if somehow you don't want to accept him, then what will you do? Discredit. That's what people do. So, Bultmann doesn't want to accept Jesus Christ. So he said that no, because John 8 is true account, not a interpolation. Now, on a clear examination of the above noted arguments, the whole arguments will fall apart. None of the writers of the gospel give any indication that they ever purposed to write an exhaustive biography of Jesus Christ. Did they ever say that? This biography is exhaustive? Never. Luke, in his introduction to the gospel, his gospel, clearly stated his intention of writing the gospel. Somebody read Luke chapter 1, 1 to 4. What was his intention? Verse 4 is sufficient. There, for save the time I will read. There he says, that you might know the certainty of the things wherein thou hast been instructed. He says, I am writing this gospel because you have heard many things about Jesus Christ. I am writing these things so that you might know the certainty of those things which you have heard about Jesus. So Luke wrote with a goal in mind. What was that goal? The man, Theophilus, to whom Luke was writing the gospel, he has heard many things about Jesus Christ, or may have asked Luke, hey, these days I hear people preaching about a Jesus Christ who lived in Palestine. You know anything about him? You are a historian? Yes, Luke said, I'm a historian, I studied about this. So he wrote about it. I am writing this only for one purpose, that you may know the certainty, the absoluteness of, the reliability of, the historicity of the person Jesus Christ about whom you have heard. Luke is not saying I am going to present you every detail for 33 years. That was not his intention. Actually, John said that in John's Gospel chapter 20. Closing that Gospel, what did John say? If all the miracles and things Jesus have taught and did, if someone has to write that this is not going to contain even in the world, that's an exaggeration, hyperbole, but yet what does that mean that? There is so much. But he said, I have picked up these and written to you that you may believe Jesus is the Son of God. I have written enough to you to believe that Jesus is the Son of God. So these writers were writing with a purpose. So when people generally attack, they say in Malayalam. That means you just shooting random. If it hits, let it hit. No, they're not going to get any venison by hitting like that. So a clear examination of these Gospels will very clearly tell us that the writers had an intent in writing. They were not writing random or carelessly. They picked up their theme about Jesus Christ and they wanted to present that Jesus they understood, or the people should understand. John's Gospel was the last Gospel. Mark's Gospel is said to be the first Gospel. Maybe, may not be. But in Mark's Gospel, he presented Jesus Christ as servant of Jehovah. Matthew's Gospel, he wanted to present it to the Jewish people. The Jewish people were waiting for the Messiah to come. And Matthew knew this is a Messiah. But the Jewish people did not accept him, they crucified him. So Matthew wanted to prove to them that the Jesus whom you crucified is the Messiah who was promised in the Old Testament. So he has picked up many Old Testament quotations and many references, and he has shown them why Jesus is the Messiah. Matthew was not interested to show to them that Jesus was a faithful servant. That was not his intention. And Luke, when he has written, he wanted to present to the world. Luke was not writing to the Jewish people. He was writing to one person specifically, Theophilus, and then to the whole Roman world, the pagan world. And he wanted to tell the pagan world that Jesus Christ is the Savior of the world. He is the Savior of the world, the perfect man, the sinless man. And he had done a superb job. He has picked up events that shows very clearly. So all these apostles, they have written very carefully. Each of the gospel writer has his own purpose. Only when we put all the four gospels together, we have a complete picture of the life of Jesus Christ. Besides, perfection and trustworthiness are not the same thing, are they? Perfection and trustworthiness are the same thing? No, they are entirely different things. Perfection shows the quality of the work. That's what the perfection shows. Trustworthiness shows the genuineness of the work. Genuineness of it. You have bought 3 meters of cloth and taken to a tailor and you wanted some shirt to be made. You wanted to pick up the shirt. 2 questions have come to your mind. One is the perfection of the workmanship, and you have looked and said, hey, this collar didn't fit very well, you see that, and you said that the buttons were not right, see the distance between this and this and this, you did a careless job, the perfect. That's about the perfection. But what about the trustworthiness? Is it the same cloth that I gave you? That's a different thing. To prove the trustworthiness, usually they will cut a small piece from the corner and staple it with the receipt, right? So that you can prove. So perfection and trustworthiness are entirely different things. The same way, the trustworthiness of Matthew is there, that is this the same Jesus that they are talking about? Yes, it's the same Jesus. But perfection, is your work perfect? I never intended to be perfect. I only wanted to present a part of Jesus' biography. That was not my intention. I never intend to make a perfect biography. The two are different. Always it is different. If you are a person who will accept only perfect things as genuine things, you have a problem. Real problem. Because a lot of genuine things are not perfect things. Sometimes it's the counterfeit things that are more perfect than genuine things. വ്യാജന്മാർ സാധനം ഉണ്ടാക്കുമ്പം കുറേ കൂടെ സൂക്ഷിച്ചാണ് ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്നല്ലേ? Yeah. Even our Reserve Bank had the problem of some counterfeit note. They said they know it is counterfeit, there is no way they can reject it because it's more perfect than the note we printed. What will you do? That's true. In many cases it's true. It's very true, You go to place like Kundankulam, where Kundankulam is. It's a market for, where here in Punjab I think is the equivalent. Somebody walked into Kundankulam market and they said that, can I get a change for a 13 rupee note? 13 rupee note. Okay, that's very different, right? So he said, oh sure. So gave 2 6 and 1 3. 13 രൂപ നോട്ടിന് ചേഞ്ച് തരാമെന്ന് ചോദിച്ചു. 2 6 ഒരു 3 കൊടുത്തു. In Kundankulam everything is available. So usually perfect things are, the counterfeit things are perfect. They make it very, very perfect. Real things they don't make that much effort because they have no doubt that this is genuine and all. So that's true about this one. So that argument again is what I say is not a correct argument. There are those who say that we cannot and would not take at face value what the evangelists have written because their personal worship and religious affinity have clouded their records. Oh, that's another argument. Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, they worshipped Jesus Christ. So they were worshippers of Jesus Christ. And therefore you cannot trust everything they say. So biographies have to be written by enemies only for its trustworthiness. So any biography written from Pakistan of our Prime Minister will be not genuine. People make, so the biography written by a son of his father is not reliable because the son loves the father. So by Mahatma Gandhi's best reliable biography will be written by Godse. People make statements that they don't think through. The question they have to ask, why did Mark, Luke and John all worship Jesus Christ? They walked with this man for 3 years. But why did they worship? I have people walking with me for many years, never they worship me. Often they are, instead of worshipping, they are worshipping. That's because they did not see me a man who is worthy to be worshipped. They saw me as an imperfect man with all the imperfections of any other human beings. So they decided that yes, he is a good man, but he cannot be worshipped. But these people worship Jesus Christ because they found in him the material for worship. He is an honest man, truthful man, loving man, forgiving man. Who claimed what he is to be. A miracle working man. He walked on the waters and so many things could be said about him. There was no faking by him. Everything was absolutely genuine. Pristine clarity and beauty in Jesus Christ. Even his enemies said, no man ever spoke like him. His enemies said, truly he was the Son of God. They worshipped him. So these people say that we cannot accept the Messiah because these people have worshipped him. If that is the case, then we would be saying that no history written by friends and followers is reliable. Only those written by enemies are reliable. But what about hatred and animosity? Aren't they emotions and feelings? If so, no one could write biographies. Actually, even the motivation to write a biography may come from love, respect, public popularity, etc. Some people may wanted to write somebody's biography just to discredit him. But not too many people will waste their time for that. Yes. An objective analysis of the Gospels will show that the Gospels were written actually have, the Gospel writers have made no deliberate effort to fabricate informations in order to create a hero. They had no intention whatsoever to create a superhero so that they will draw some personal benefits. Why people lie? What are the motivations for lying? Only two motivations. One, out of fear. If you speak the truth, they will put you in jail. So the thief will say what? No, I was not here in the town. I was in Chennai at that time. I have not seen, I have not heard. If he say, yeah, I have stolen it, they will catch him. So out of fear, they will say that. Or people will say lie for profit. 5 liter, the cow that gives 5 liter, when you want to sell it, it gives you 10 liters, right? Why? Because saying a lie will get more. So people will, but in these cases of the disciples, what profit they had? 11 of them were martyred. After the 12 disciples, 11 died as martyrs. They were all killed for preaching the lie that these people are saying. What is the lie? Jesus Christ is the Son of God. He lived and he died and rose again. That is a lie they preached. And when they were taken to the gallows to be killed for preaching this lie, they wanted to escape. All they have to do is tell the truth. That's right. Who will die for a lie? Who will die for a lie? If Jesus never rose again, these disciples have stolen the body. When they were going to be taken to be stoning, they said that, wait a minute, I'll bring the body. Oh, the enemies would have been so happy because Christianity would have been finished. But every one of them died. Who will die for a lie? Never heard about it. Then benefit. What was the benefit these people got? You read Paul's experience. Before conversion, who was Paul? He was a member of the Sanhedrin. He was a Pharisee of the Pharisees. He was a great leader. He was one of the richest men, a Roman citizen and all that. But then how did he die? As a poor man. He was in the jail. The winter season was coming. He wrote to Timothy what? Bring the blanket that I have left with Trophimus last year. The winter season, the cold of the Roman jail, He has no warm clothes, nothing. There is no bed. He is sleeping on the floor. He is begging his disciple, bring that old blanket. That was his poverty. Who will suffer for a lie? Who will suffer for a lie? So there is no motivation. There is no motivation for lie. These people can in nowhere argue their case and establish it. Absolutely not. So these evangelists were recording the events as they have experienced and known or heard and understood. Matthew and John were actually, disciples of the Lord, and they knew what they were writing. Why should they write what they have personally known to be a lie? What was a prophet? Mark was no stranger to Jesus. The home of John Mark was the place where the Lord's Supper was established. Jesus Christ frequented that home many times. Mark was a young boy who was following Jesus when he was, arrested, who had a blanket on him. They have taken the blanket. He walked away, ran away naked. He was a small boy, so he was eyewitness to everything that was happening there. And of course, Luke was the only one who didn't have a personal knowledge of Jesus Christ. But then Luke was a historian. Luke was a historian, a very careful historian. He has interviewed thousands and thousands of people, because the introduction says that, after comparing everything, meticulously analyzing everything that was written, I have found out the truth and I am writing it. That's what is written in the introduction. Sagalava Sushmamai Parishodhicha Shesham. He is a thorough historian. And he was a co-worker of Paul. Paul knew about it. Why? Because Paul was in Jerusalem. He met James, the brother of Jesus Christ, talked with him. Peter, the disciple of Jesus Christ. If Mary was living at that time, definitely with Mary, the mother of Jesus. So these people were not strangers. No. They were not people who were writing, stories for children to read. No. So there is no reason in any way. Who will die for mythological personality? After creating a non-historical imaginative Christ, will those who created such a mythological person will ever die for that one? Nonsense. When we realize that 11 of the 12 disciples were dying martyrs for Christ and Him crucified, we realize how dearly they believed in the historical accuracy of the events of Christ. Jesus' brother James was the most righteous person who ever lived in Jerusalem. Ever lived. Josephus, who was a number one enemy of Christianity, but a very ardent Jew. He was a Roman historian. He was an ardent Jew, proud of being a Jew. In his Antiquities, he has written like this. In AD 70, God permitted the temple to be destroyed as a punishment for killing the righteous man, James, the brother of Jesus. His statement is, ever on the face of the earth a righteous man has lived. He said it is James, the brother of Jesus. This James was taken at the top of the temple, the pinnacle of the temple. And there he was asked, the people were, thousands and tens of thousands people were standing, on the ground. He was asked, you tell all these people that Jesus Christ was the son of a Roman soldier. He is no son of God. He never rose again. Tell those people. And James said, I cannot, because that will be blatant lie. The Jesus, my brother, is a son of God. He died and rose again. After his resurrection, he has appeared to me. I cannot deny what I know. Somebody pushed him from there. Somebody standing at the back pushed him. He fell down hundreds of feet down. But he didn't die. He knelt down and started praying. One of the dhobies was coming who had a stick, for washing the clothes. With that stick, he hit James at the head. And he died there. James had only to say that my brother Jesus was no God, nothing. I know him. He was a cheat. He cheated himself. He was a cheat, deceiver, self-deceived and deceiver. He was probably son of some Roman soldiers. No, he was never resurrected. He would have been saved. So people, when they speak against Christianity, it is they are biased against Christianity. because they are guilty in their life and they know that this historical Jesus Christ is going to judge them and they have to stand before the Jesus and give an account for all they have done. So what are they doing? Like the cat closing the eyes, making it dark and drinking the milk, so that they can be assured that nobody saw it. That's what these people are doing. How long they can do it? Now you cannot make the whole world dark by closing your eyes. No, you only, blacken yourselves. So, these arguments people just bring, no. Then they say that the New Testament records about Jesus Christ are contradictory in themselves. They say that. They will say that. There are plenty of contradictions. What are those contradictions? They will point out a number. But the interesting thing is, they are simply apparent contradiction. That is, when you study the biography of a person written from 4 different perspectives, there will be some informations they do not complement each other. That's supposed to be there. That's supposed to be there. That's all what is there. Because these people did not include all the informations not relevant for their purpose. Differences obvious in their 4 biographies. They are really not contradictions or errors. They are simply variations relevant to the point of view. This difference definitely we see in the Gospels. Matthew was presenting Jesus as the King of Jews. When considering Jesus as the King of Jews, he has a judiciously selected information relevant to that proposition. The wise men came and asked, what was the question? Where is he who is born as the King of Jews? But the shepherds didn't come and ask, where is he who is born? No, they didn't. They came and asked the question, where is he who is born as the Savior of? So see the contradiction? See the contradiction? One group came and asked, where is the king? The other said, where is the Savior? See, that is contradiction. Is that contradiction? That's not contradiction. The wise men are wise men. They have seen the star of the king and they came. The shepherds were not wise people, they were poor people. The angels announced to them that, for you a Savior is born in the city of David. Arise, go and see him. So the wise men came because they have seen the star of a king. Their question is, where is the king? The shepherds, ordinary people, they were told by the angels, a Savior is born. So they asked the question, where is the Savior? So what's the contradiction? Where is the contradiction? There is no contradiction. People do that. If somebody come home and they ask for me, depend upon who my wife's answer will vary. If it is that children come and ask daddy, he say, Daddy, you illada mone. And immediately as they were there, somebody came and said, the wife says, Sari vidilla gato. See the contradiction? Daddy vidilla, Sar vidilla. See, I told you it's a lie. How can Sar be daddy? Or daddy be Sar? Now this is the line of arguments these people. Isn't it funny? That's funny. But the world over they are claiming these things. They pretend to be wise. In Romans chapter 1, Paul said that they pretending to be wise, they become fools. Pretending to be wise, they become fools. Someday they do that. John Wesley was a great man. You heard of John Wesley? Who started the Wesleyan church or the Methodist church. So one day he was walking on the road, and a very famous, or you should rather say notorious, atheist was coming against. In the footpath only one person can go because there was the electric pole there, so one has to step down into the road. So they came face to face. The atheist said, I will not give my way to any fool. John Wesley said, but I do. But I do. I give my way to fools. So he stepped down. So sometimes the very smart people become very fools. That's the sort of thing these people are saying, I mean, they pretend to be wise people. They say all kinds of foolish things. And of course, people will listen to these fools and they say that, wow, that's an idea. Yeah, there is an idea. Yes. Differences obvious in the four biographies because they are written from a different point of view. The differences definitely we see in the Gospels, and they don't disprove anything. No, they don't. They only prove something. They prove that these four writers did not sit down and they have not fabricated together. Yes. If four people are decided we wanted to write a biography of a person who never lived. Let's call him Timbuktu. Timbuktu is a place in Africa, but let's call him Mr. Timbuktu. So, they said, what are we going to do? We all wanted to say that Timbuktu was born, dash place, dash date, his father was dash, mother was dash, had so many brothers, so many this and so many. He lived so many years, he studied in so many colleges, this degree, this degree, this degree, and all that. So all the informations were given. Now you go and start writing your biography. Well, even if they write a biography like that, there will be there will be contradictions. Even they write a biography like that, they will be contradictions because they have come across some point where they didn't consult. Hey, we didn't say who the wife was. They said everything else, but we didn't say who the wife was. So some said Rosie, some said Jessie, some said Lizzie, some said Fussy. Oh, contradictions. Yeah, that's contradictions there. But these disciples did not sit around a table and said, we want to write the biography of Jesus. Make sure that there is no contradictions. Okay, make sure that everything is top, so that after reading the biography, everybody start falling down and worshipping. That's not how they wrote the biography of Jesus Christ. They wrote different places, different times, different motivations, different people interviewed. This is the reality. And you expect in the reality there will be some such things when it is not deliberately manipulated. That which is not deliberately manipulated will have some discrepancies, if you want to say like this, and that's all what is there, To the question, is Jesus Christ an actual historical personality? A fourfold answer is given to prove the fact positively. These fourfold answers or approaches are: number one, Gospels are reliable historical records. I want to prove that. Gospels are reliable historical records. Number two, ancient non-Christian writings, that is, writings outside Christianity, Christian influence, those documents clearly show Jesus Christ is a historical person. You can close the Bible, throw it away. From non-biblical writers, you can reconstitute the biography of Jesus and show that Jesus is a historical person. There are so many informations on them. Third, ancient Christian literature bear witness to the histories. Outside the Bible, hundreds of books were written. All those books carry plenty of relevance quotations from the Bibles. The second was non-Christian. Yes. Third one is ancient Christian literatures. Number four, archaeology bear witness to the historicity of Jesus Christ. So we take the first one. We have few more minutes. Gospels are reliable historical records. The primary source of our knowledge about Jesus Christ, is the Gospels. That everybody has to admit that. What we know about Jesus Christ, we know from the Gospels. If those Gospels happen to be unreliable sources, then our knowledge about Jesus Christ is false. Bible and Jesus Christ will be reduced to myth. For this reason, those who would like to question the truthfulness of Christ would attack the Gospels. Anybody who doesn't want Jesus Christ to be God, anybody who doesn't want Jesus to be a reality, what are they going to do? They are going to attack the Gospels. If for some reason they are successful, then they are successful. They don't have to worry about the final judge. You know. If somebody doesn't want the case to go before certain judge, what will they do? They will research and find out whether, the plaintiff or the defendant, one of them, is related to this judge. So they will research and they will put an article that, this judge is not qualified to try this case. Why? Because his great nephews, father-in-laws or mother-in-laws, great uncles, great nephew happen to be something like that. So as soon as that comes, the ethics of judiciary says that you should not be listening to the case of any relation. The judge will say, I resign myself from taking this case. So attacking the judge because you don't want the case to go before that judge. Why? Because that judge is a truthful judge. You know that any case that goes there will be truthfully dealt with. So you don't want this case to go to the truthful judge. So you cannot question the truthfulness of the judge, but you can question the relationship with the plaintiff. Okay, that's what they do. These people also. If Jesus Christ is, as they claim to be God, boy, when they stand before Jesus, the final judgment, it's going to be a difficult time. It will be a difficult time. They know Jesus is an honest person. They know Jesus is God. He knows everything. They know Jesus is truthful. They know Jesus hates this sin and this sin and this sin. And they know Jesus is going to be the judge in the final day who is going to judge and throw them into eternal hell. So they wanted to comfort themselves. They want to make sure that no, Jesus is not a historical person. Jesus is not correct. He is not reliable. This, that. So they begin to attack, the Gospels. That's what they do. So if these Gospels happen to be unreliable, boy, these people are comfortable. Yes, they are comfortable. For this reason, those who would like to question the truthfulness of Christ would attack the Gospel. Such people are not few, even today. The Gospel records accepted absolutely reliable and truthful for centuries and millennium now wants to reduce them to questionable records. One false concept these enemies of the Gospels try to spread is that Gospels are written only in 2nd or 3rd century AD. This is one of they say that. Matthew, Mark, Luke and John have not written these things. These are by pseudonames, they are pseudo records. Somebody just called himself Matthew who lived in the 2nd or 3rd century. These people have never seen Jesus Christ. So that was a lie they were spreading. And how are they spreading the lie? Because we don't have any of the writings of the Gospels written in the 1st century. See that? We don't have 1st century original copies or handwritten copies. All the copies we have are 3rd centuries and 4th centuries and all. So that means what? That means these people didn't live. But what happens? Their charge became false because, no one could take the concept seriously because we have reliable manuscripts of the Gospel from the 2nd centuries, not one or two. Hundreds and thousands of manuscripts scattered all over the world. Besides, these writings of the Apostolic Fathers written in the 2nd centuries contain plenty of quotations from the Gospels. As I said, Didache, the teachings of the 12 written in 112 AD contains many references to Jesus Christ. So how could you question that? Many of those writings were made 30 or 40 years after the period of the Apostles. Josephus makes many references to Jesus Christ, who lived only few years after Jesus Christ. There were Roman historians who lived in the 2nd century. They make references to Jesus Christ as a historical person. How can these people say? So what decides the credibility of writing? Two criterion are generally cited. First, the writer must have personal knowledge with the subject or the person, either as an eyewitness or as a research scholar. That's one requirement. the writer should be either an eyewitness or he should be a research scholar. Somebody could be a research scholar and still write a biography of Mahatma Gandhi. He has never seen. But he examines thousands of books and thousands of hundreds of biographies. Then he sit down and write the biography of Mahatma Gandhi. That my biography could be a very reliable biography because he is a research scholar. You have to prove that the research scholar is a liar or a dishonest person, then only you can discredit it. But in the case of the gospel writers, there were three of them were eyewitnesses and one of them is a research scholar. Secondly, the writer must be someone who maintains integrity and truthfulness. Historians need to record history truthfully. They must be men of integrity. And you talk about these men, every one of those gospel writers but they died as martyrs. Every one of them died as martyrs. That means they were people who would even die for the truth they believe. Can you find anybody having greater integrity than that? Anybody? Sometimes people will say that, some lawyers sometimes will say in the cases, if you say the truth, you cannot win this case. So you have to say not a whole lot of lie, but whatever we tell you, that you have to say. So there are people who say that, no, I will not say lie. I will not say lie, I will only speak the truth. Lawyer gets angry and says that, then I won't take your case. I don't want to be a lawyer to lose a case. If you won't say these things that the way I tell you, no, suppose that person, no, I will not. So, they come to the court and the judge asks the question or the cross-examination, they ask the question and he speaks the truth. Boom. So he speaks the truth and then he is sentenced to 10 years. 10 years in the jail. Well, what will you say about that man? A truthful man or a liar? You may say, ask the question, then why did he go to jail? Because he spoke the truth. See, the court is not looking for truth. They are looking for justice. Right? Needi Nyaya Kodadi. Satya Kodadi nillilla angana norkundo. No, it doesn't mean the courts are saying the lie. Even if the judge knows that this person has not killed him, the judge cannot use his personal knowledge to make the judgment. Judge could resign and be a witness in another court. The case is decided on the basis of evidences that are produced in the court. So if your judge is, if your lawyer is a smart one, you can win the case because smart lawyers know what to do with truth or what to do with lie. Once a neighbor's case, the neighbor has abused the neighbor, what you call Malayalam parayile, the chita vilichu nokku parayile. So that's sort of abusive language and all. So the case has come to the court. This man he used the abusive language. His lawyer said, whatever question asked, you pretend to be a dumb person, So whatever they asked, he said, So they asked 10-15 questions. For every question he said, So the judge said that, how can he, who cannot speak, how can he give you, abusive language? So he said, case dismissed. So after going out, the vakil said, give me my fee. He said, he walked away. He was smart enough, wasn't he? But truthful, the court is not looking for what is the truth. Court is only looking for what is the evidence. If you can produce evidence for your case, you can win it. If you cannot produce evidences, even if you are 100% truthful, you will go to jail. You will go to even gallows. There is no way. The judge may know that, okay, this person has not done, so the judge may do something that instead of giving the maximum penalty, the judge may give you the minimum penalty. That's what the judge can. Yeah, that's maximum. But in the absence of evidences, it is the evidences. So, if these people, these four gospel writers are taken to a court, I think they will all come out with flying colors. They have the credentials to prove that they are genuine people. What did their master teach them? Say a lie? What did Jesus Christ teach these people? Depend upon the situations, use lies? Or he taught them to be absolutely truthful even if you have to die? So how can you expect such people will say blatant lies? They cannot prove it. So the writer, they maintained integrity and truthfulness. Now we examine the gospel, if we examine the gospel writers by the above two standards, all four evangelists will come out 100% successful. Matthew and John had been with Jesus for 3 years. They were with him not merely as occasional visitors, but as full-time disciples living with him, traveling with him, and commissioned by them. Mark and Luke both qualified to write the Gospels by virtue of Mark being the spiritual son of Peter, and Luke as a careful historian who has researched the history of Jesus Christ. Besides, Luke has been the associate of Apostle Paul. Mark had been a witness of himself of many of the things that happened in the life of Christ. Mark's mother Mary, her home was the center of many of the activities of Jesus Christ. Mark followed Jesus Christ to the trial as a young boy. Among the 12 disciples of Jesus, John had a unique relationship with Jesus. You know, the tradition says that John was the cousin of Jesus Christ. We don't know. But we know that John was a special disciple because we read that John whom Jesus loved most. John, Peter and James were the three disciples who were taken with Jesus on special occasions like the Mount of Transfiguration. And then even Gethsemane, the 11 were taken to one certain extent, and then the 3 were taken with him to farthest extent. And to the Jairus home when she was going to be raised. And all these disciples were with him. Even when all the disciples of Jesus has deserted him at the trial and the following crucifixion, John faithfully stayed with Jesus at the cross. He was very close to the cross itself. There is a tradition from the first century that Christ and John were cousins. Christ's mother Mary and John's mother are said to be sisters. If this tradition is true, then John is blessed with access to accurate information about the birth, childhood, etc. of Jesus Christ. This could be a reason why John was the most beloved disciple of Jesus Christ, and this may be the reason why John's mother came to Jesus with a recommendation, hey, blood is thicker than water. You know, your Peter and your other disciples are water, but these are your cousins, James and John. Make sure they'll sit on the left and the right. And Jesus said, well, blood may be thicker than water, but this issue is decided by the Father in heaven, you know. So that tradition may be right, you know, I don't know. That's a tradition. So my point is, John definitely had a greater access to the story of Jesus than anybody else. Mark is supposed to be an eyewitness to the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Mark 14:51 tells us about Mark as a young boy following Christ to the trial with only a cloth on his body. Besides, Mark is said to be the nephew of Barnabas, who was supposed to be the alternative candidate for Judas. When they had to choose one instead of Judas, 2 people were found qualified. One is called Barsabbas, which scholars all agree that he is the same as the Barnabas. So Barnabas, you know, was with Jesus for 3 years, and Barnabas' own nephew is John Mark. So any lack for information? about Jesus Christ? Definitely not. In essence, to say that the writers of these Gospels had no direct knowledge of the life of Christ is a joke. Every one of the four evangelists who superbly are qualified to write the Gospels, they are. Yes. Yeah, I will try to cover one more point. The similarities of the Gospels, that's another. One of the proofs for the trustworthiness of the Gospel is their similarities one with the other. The first three Gospels are viewed basically similar. They are called the synoptic Gospel. Synoptic means similar Gospel. The Gospels which agree one another. It is, syn means with, optic means to see, You have many kinds of optics, Yes. And the optics are all to, glasses that to see. So synoptics to see similar, to look similar. That is what. So it is worthy to point out that Mark and Luke probably had the familiarities one another. There is no evidence to establish, as some suggest, that Luke based his gospel on Mark. However, we must admit that Matthew, Mark and Luke have great similarity. Out of the 661 verses of Mark, 606 are found in Matthew. Out of the 661 verses of Mark, 606 are found in Matthew. 380 verses of Mark are found in Luke also. Only negligible differences exist among the verses. Matthew has 1068 verses. 500 of these verses are found in Mark also. Luke has 1149 verses, out of which 380 are found in Mark. Only 31 verses of Mark do not have parallel verses in the other Gospels, according to Bruce. Bruce was the greatest scholar who lived in the 20th century, biblical scholar, So according to Bruce, say that only 31 verses do not have a parallel. The same way Matthew and Luke have 250 verses in common. What these similarities show? Definitely they show that the Gospels are reliable records. However, these writers never consulted in the writing of the Gospels. Among them, there never existed a conspiracy to produce a biography of Jesus Christ. Similarity need not be a sign of forgery. They could be a sign of genuineness. 2,000 rupee notes you have taken, you turn this way, that way, they are identical. Does that mean they are forgeries? Similarity does not prove forgery. Similarity also only prove genuineness. Yeah, see? John's Gospel is the last Gospel. John wrote his Gospel decades after the other Gospels were written. There is a good possibility that John had read the other three Gospels, and therefore John had taken special care to write what other Gospels did not write, did not mention. John's theme was totally different from the other theme. John wanted to present the aspect of the deity of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ, the Son of God. Christ was very clearly and systematically presented as, as the Son of God by John. He wanted the readers not only to know about the deity, but also believe and be saved by that knowledge. For he clearly stated that in John chapter 20, verse 30 and 31. John has sworn to the truthfulness whatsoever he has written. Repeatedly he said, what I write is true because I am an eyewitness. Because he was writing some things the other gospel writers did not write. So some people could think that, hey, others never mentioned about it. So John said, what I write is true because I was present there, I was an eyewitness. John had great familiarity with every place Christ has ministered during his public ministry. John knew the exact distance from Jerusalem to the different places of Christ's ministry. John 11 and all, you can see it. John knew why Anon was chosen for baptism, because there was much water. He knew it. He knew how many porches Bethsaida had. 5 porches. Such information again show that John was a man who was familiar with Jerusalem. every nook and corner of Jerusalem. He knew the distance between, Bethsaida and this place, or between Jerusalem and Bethania. Bethany. He knew exactly. He says all those things exactly. How? Because John was not a stranger to that place. John was born and brought up there, so he knew, all those things. So he was an eyewitness to the activities of Christ in those places. There is no reasonable room to question the truthfulness of the gospel accounts. We will stop it there, and then next we will move to the writings of Paul, which is again a large area. So what meant to say that any accusation by anybody that the gospels are not reliable, is a false accusation. And that person who raised that accusation has a biased interest. He either wanted to prove Jesus is not a historical reliability, because his theory and Jesus' theory both cannot stand, and he knows where Jesus stands, he has to fall. And that's true many places. You cannot, this and that cannot go together. So one has to go. Question is, who will? They are trying hard for Jesus to go, but it will be very hard for Jesus to go, because he has been a reality in the world for 2,000 years. Conquered every nation, every people, every language. Yes. Where are these people? Madam O'Hare, you heard of Madam O'Hare? She was the president of the, atheistic movement in America for a long time. She has only one son. She has raised up this son such a way that he drank the milk of atheism, day in and day night. Boy, when that boy became an adult, he accepted Jesus Christ and became a preacher for Jesus Christ. He knew my mother was wrong all the way. That's it. Russians tried their best for years and years. How many batches of students they had in the classrooms. Every batch, beginning with Lenin, they have started talking about, Jesus is a myth, Jesus is a myth, there is no God, there is no God. They make the children repeat that after. One day, if the teacher doesn't say, the child will say, there is God. So finally, what they have given it up. They have given it up. Today in Russia, people can have Bible, they can go to church. Why? With all your, iron rod, you were ruling with all your muscles, and your atheism was there, your communism was there, your everything was there, Marx's theories were there, Hegel's theories were there, and, dialectical materialism was there, whatever you want to call it, there. What happened to you? The harder we rub the truth of God and Christianity, the clearer they become. That's true. China also given up. Now they permit some Bibles and all. They don't want to do it the whole the way, because that's a shame upon them. Yeah? Yes. C.S. Lewis was an atheist. You know that? Yeah, C.S. Lewis was an atheist. He wanted to prove Bible is fake. He started reading. By the time he finished the Bible, he became a Christian. He started writing that the Bible and Jesus Christ are true. There are so many such people. Anybody who has read the Bible once honestly, they have become believers of the Bible. Dr. Nambudripad, K.N. Nambudripad, who was the president of the Ludhiana Medical College, and was a Brahmin converted, and he one day was talking, we were listening to him, and he said that the first day he read Bible, he became a Christian. He said that he went for a party, and everybody was serving liquor in England, all medical doctors and all that. Dr. George, I will call you back in 10-15 minutes. I'm taking a class now, okay? All right. So, the nurse was sitting there. She was not drinking liquor, So I asked her, why are you not drinking? She said, I'm a Christian. What do you mean by you're a Christian? Aren't all these people Christian in England? They're all drinking. He said that I don't know they're Christians or not. I think they are not. I'm a Christian, I don't drink. So she presented him a gospel, New Testament. Said, read it. He went home, all night he read it. As much as he could. By morning he was a Christian. So he was telling that the reason why people oppose Christianity is because they have never read the Bible. You don't need to do anything. You just give them a Bible and tell them, for God's sake, you read it once without bias. Muslim or anybody. It's so easy to oppose whom you do not know, right? The more you know a person, less you can oppose him. Yeah, that's true. Especially when that person is a good person. The Bible is a book like that. So anybody who reads the Bible, honestly, they have it too. Because that book is the truth. This is the truth, the absolute truth, pristine purity, Yeah. So if you have not read it, I know you have all read, but for any reason, if your knowledge about Jesus Christ is hearsay, well, take copy of the Bible, start reading from the John's Gospel, and then read the New Testament, then go to the Old Testament. I know by the time you finish the New Testament, you will be on your knees with your hands lifted up saying, I have wasted my life to this day. I chased after many things, not reality. Thank God, you are real. You are real. That's true. That's true. So I will stop my words here.